broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, welcome everyone to our first Title Topics webinar of 2018. These are Alta's free presentations focusing on issues important to title professionals across the country. I am Jeremy Yohe, Alta's Vice President of Communications, and today we've got a great webinar lined up today to help you build the right foundation for your title company. Before starting, I need to touch on a few housekeeping items. A copy of today's presentation was emailed about an hour ago to all registrants, although I noticed some of you don't accept PDFs, so you can also download the PDF from the GoToWebinar window pane. And also, if you're only listening by phone, you can send me an email and I can send you a presentation following the conclusion of the webinar. And my email is jyohe@alta.org. Again, that is jyohe@alta.org. All participants, their lines are muted for today's presentation. If anytime you do have a question, submit them through the questions box, and we'll hold some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And as an added benefit, we do record our webinars, and after the file is processed, we'll send you an email to access the recording. And you can always access all of our webinar recordings on our website at alta.org/title topics. Again, that's alta.org/title topics. I need to thank Fidelity National Title Group for sponsoring our title topic webinars this year. This support allows us to offer these webinars free of charge. And with that out of the way, let me introduce today's speaker. Joining us today is Jim Sapiga. Jim is Chief Executive Officer of CADIC, which is an underwriter licensed in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, so up there in the New England area. Jim has been in the industry for more than 20 years and joined CADIC 2 years ago. And with that, Jim, I'll turn the presentation over to you so you can share what you've done and how you've gone about engaging your staff and really kind of adapted and changed the CADIC culture.
You bet, Jeremy. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody, and Happy New Year. I hope everyone's surviving the winter. I think even some Floridians have gotten snow this year, so it's been a tough one so far. As Jeremy mentioned, I'm Jim Sapiga, President and CEO of CADIC. Today we're going to be kicking around a hot topic, quote unquote, just like e-notarizations, e-closings, blockchain, cryptocurrency, et cetera, albeit a little less controversial than some of those topics. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about corporate culture. And when I started putting this presentation together, I thought, let's start with some of the basics, such as, first off, what the heck is corporate culture? Why is it important? Why is it defined? So this is a funny slide that I found that I put in here, just to kind of what corporate culture can be. But it's also a great example of why culture change can't be a mandate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. It really can't be something that gets dictated. And it's kind of a funny little thing that I figured I would put in. But basically, culture is the overall collection. Corporate culture is the overall collection of how we do things around here. It's more of a feeling than anything else that can be put into words, if you will. It's the company's and employees' habits, their behaviors, how we feel, and how we look at things collectively. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between a culture of mediocrity, which is a culture of ho-hum, going through the motions and not being engaged in your work, to a culture of just get it. And I put that in parentheses because I use a different term sometimes here, but it's just getting it done. And that's basically getting employees, more engaged and more excited about what they do each and every day and helping to change that culture. So how do we change a company's culture? Let's say from mediocrity or stuck in the past to one that is focused on getting it done. Couple of good quotes I found. Changing the company culture requires a movement and not a mandate. What does that really mean? Basically, you can't tell shareholders, stakeholders, employees what a culture will be. You have to create it. It has to be formed by itself. You can't just say what it will be. And changing a culture, developing a culture, it starts at the very top. It starts with action, daily behaviors, and daily habits. Another great quote by a famous author, Stephen Covey. And one thing it says here, you can be a transformer to change a company's culture, but it requires vision, initiative, patience, so on and so forth. But I also added here, it also requires a lot of hard work and lots of communication as well with all stakeholders and employees. So throughout this presentation, this webinar, I'm going to be using my own company, Caddick, as an example. And what was Caddick's culture when I arrived in 2015, just over 2 years ago? Caddick had many strengths. It's a 50-year-old company that's been around for a long time and has done well servicing its target market for a long period of time. So it had its strengths, but it had some weaknesses. It was more or less a 50-year-old company that was considered in our market to be a sleepy little residential title insurance company. It was a company that was comfortable doing many things the same way, just because. And sometimes it had a culture of fear, and I'll talk a little bit about what I mean there a little later on as well. It also had a culture of acceptance. It was acceptable to do things the same way because we always have. We accepted the fact that high interest rates and a bad winter here in New England controlled our destiny. And not having specific or measurable goals was okay. So it was a company that did very well, serviced its market very well, but was steeped in tradition. So how did we start the change from a culture of mediocrity and acceptance to one solely focused on the stakeholder and the goals of the company? So it really, for me, and this is from my first day of work at Caddick into the first few months of what I did to sort of start changing the direction, if you will, of the company from a culture standpoint. So first day I got on the job, I walked around the building and I introduced myself to each individual, told them who I was, and asked each person in the building, shook their hand and asked them what they did for the company, how long they were at the company for, so on and so forth. Establish some personal connections right off the bat. The first few months or so, I asked a lot of questions, I listened, I observed, and I listened some more. Over the years, I've been told by my grandfather and my parents, you have 2 ears, use them in one mouth. Don't use it as much. I also identified some of the informal leaders within the organization, the change agents, the creative doers, people that had pent up energy and pent up ideas and just tried to release them and get them to be contributors. I also took the small office, and I told the team I was focused on our SWOT. I wasn't worrying about small things in my life, having a small office or something like that. It was basically a statement, if you will, early on that, I was going to focus on getting it done and not worrying about the small things. And I also focus on some early wins. Early wins are basically the low-hanging fruit, doing some things when you get to an organization that will show those that are around you and looking up to you that you've got some credibility and you can get, quote unquote, it done. So I started with employee engagement, but not this type of engagement, as you can see. So I thought this was kind of humorous. Ha, 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 ha. So what does this teach, though? After listening, basically take action, because that's what basically this is telling us, is that, you just can't listen. You've got to follow up with the listening and the hearing with action. And as leaders, managers, how do we create a movement and change a culture? So how do we do that? First and foremost is engage your employees. Most importantly, it's about communication and collaboration. And that's with staff, management, stakeholders, with anybody that might help shape the company culture. Secondly, engage the stakeholders as to where we are going and how we are getting there. What's our vision? What's our mission? What's our plan? And how are we getting there? It's important to communicate that early and often. One of the stories I like to tell, in the first few months of me being here on the job, I got my COO, Chris Condi, on the phone. I said, listen, let's hit the road and go to every single branch operation around the region. And I want to meet with each manager and all the staff and figure out what they need in terms of tools and other things to be successful in their marketplace. So we did a road trip, we met, and I took notes, I listened some more, and got the feedback from all the folks around the region about what they needed to be more successful in their marketplace. I engaged with them. And some of the requests were as simple as, geez, we could really use new monitors or a new copy machine, or we should move into a different market or move into a different office location or something along those lines. But I listened and I took action after I got back, and I fulfilled what they were looking for. Another great example is we would have full staff meetings, and we still do. They're town hall style meetings. We have them in our home office, and we get all the branch operations together on the phone as well. And it gives me the ability to get in front of all the staff and talk about what we're doing as a company. And one of the things that I did earlier this year, before I even went to the board of directors and other folks with our strategic plan, is I went to the employees and the staff and went through a dry run of what our strategic plan was going to be and what our vision was going to be. And that was formulated with basically bottom-up contributions about what the senior staff and other managers wanted the company to be 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. But we communicated that to the staff. We told everyone where we are, where we were going, and how we were going to get there, and that we're doing it together. So that's, one of the things that I was able to do early on and continue to do. Engage, buy-in, and transparency. What do I mean by transparency? Again, telling folks what's going on, why we're changing things, why we're doing things differently. People want to know what the hell's going on, basically, on a day-to-day basis. They don't want to be guessing. They don't want to have conjecture. You don't want to have rumors. So I try to be as transparent with the staff as much as possible and give them results and tell them basically everything that's going on plan-wise with the company. Also, engagement. You can't really do it via email. It's got to be in person. It's a personal endeavor, and it can't be done via email or text. And I think that's very important. I think a lot of times you can't see body language. You can't see people's snarky smirks or whatever if you're saying something and that kind of thing. But being done in person is extremely important in that endeavor. Also, you cannot engage employees if you're not engaged as a leader. What does that mean? And that means basically each and every day you've got to come into the job and be energetic and ready to hit the ground running and have a lot of enthusiasm. And I always say it's a trite saying, but and I may have it further in my PowerPoint presentation here, but behavior breeds behavior. How you act and how you act each and every day has a effect on other people. It influences other people's behaviors as well. So that's also very important when it comes to engagement. So once we get folks engaged with regard to what we're doing, where we're headed, the plan, how we're going to get there together, and so on and so forth, what's really the next step? The next step is getting people excited. Once folks get engaged or caring about what we're doing, why we're doing it, it's really time to get them excited about, again, where we're going, where we're headed, what are our goals, what are our hopes, dreams, and aspirations, if you will. Also, people want to be on winning teams, and that's what starts what I call the shift in culture. And I watch a lot of sports, whether it's football, baseball, or whatever, and we often hear about coaches or GMs coming in and changing the team's culture. There's been teams out there that have accepted losing seasons, and I don't want to pick on anyone sports team, but we know there's some of those out there that you get through every single season. You're like, I cannot believe we lost another season like this, and it's almost like they have a culture of losing. And we have a little team here in New England that's got a culture of winning, and they put it together pretty well, and they execute each and every year, and it's amazing what they do. But people want to be on winning teams, and I think again it's getting that message out, and that starts the shift. They also want to know how they can contribute. And we can take a football team. We can take the person that tends to the locker room. I guess that's a bad example, but it's up and down throughout the organization how people can contribute. How do they play a part? Finally, and very importantly, showing passion and leadership on a daily basis is so critical and so important. And very difficult to do, but critical in creating a movement and changing a culture. As I mentioned before, behavior breeds behavior. If you don't care, your employees won't care either. If you're excited for the future, so will your employees. But it needs to be consistent, and it's hard work. It's hard work every single day to get up and show passion and leadership and be excited and be enthusiastic each and every day. It's definitely something to work on. So the next step in exciting is what's in it for me? So we've heard this before. So employees know where we're going, where we're headed, what our goals are. They're engaged. We're starting to get them excited. But at the end of the day, people want to know what's really in it for them. But if we're successful and we meet our goals and we achieve our mission and our vision, there's job security, there's raises, there's bonuses, there's all that stuff, and that's important. But then there's also, grown and picked from Jim's garden. I did this and shared with my employees, and these are really good, are tomatoes I bring in, during the summer, and we share those. During a busy time of the summer as well, we'll bring in an ice cream truck one afternoon to just show the appreciation and get excited about we are, especially when we've achieved some milestones in a particular month or a particular quarter. We've done cookouts in the back parking lot of our building. We've had pizza Fridays. And also, at the end of a really, really good quarter we had this year, I stopped at Whole Foods and basically brought in a bagel bar for everybody in the building here. So just doing fun things and getting folks excited, both from a monetary standpoint, but also having fun and seeing the results of their labors and their hard work and how they're contributing is extremely important. So it's whatever it takes to get them excited. The next step, once you've got them engaged, we've got them excited, is how do we empower our employees? What are the next steps that we need to do here to change the culture? What now? So we need to let employees make decisions. Now, this sounds very basic, but it's hard to let go sometimes on this. It really is. And this is a quote I found from Jack Welch, who was a very successful CEO many years ago and since retired from GE. But if you pick the right people and give them the opportunity to spread their wings and put compensation as a carry behind it, you almost don't have to manage them. And that's so true. I've sort of like paraphrased this, and I usually say, surround yourself with really good people and let them do their thing. That's sort of along the same lines as what he was talking about. And in order to get out of the weeds as a manager, a leader, you need to let the culture of success in, needs to let employees make critical thinking decisions, and make sure that they understand that there's no fear in doing so. Also, surround yourself with great employees, creative doers, and again, let them do their thing. Get out of their way. Next thing, and I mentioned this before, is getting over the culture of fear. What's the culture of fear? Culture of fear basically is people being afraid of speaking their mind, trying new things, helping create new products, getting out of the safe harbor, getting out of the boat. As I mentioned, it's oftentimes for us, it's very easy each day to come in and do the same thing over and over again because that's what we're used to. But sometimes people have great ideas or want to do different things, but they're not encouraged to do so, or there's a fear of doing so, fear of retribution or what have you. Mistakes are okay. Let go of the controls, but be there for the support. And I say this to my managers, and I try to live it each and every day, is, how can I help you? I'm here to help you. You are the frontline folks. You're making it happen. You're servicing the customers. You're growing the business. I'm here to help you. How can home office, how can the headquarters, how can my team in the field and in the trenches, how can we help you versus the other way around? And I think that's very important. One of the things with regard to empowerment I wanted to give as an example is when I first came to CADIC, we had a meeting with all the underwriters and counsel. And for a long period of time, CADIC had a sort of culture of conservative underwriting. But I let all the underwriters know that, having been in the business for a long time and having dabbled and done some underwriting, usually my underwriting standard is, does it have a check with it? But I'm kidding. But I understand that underwriting is an art and a science. And I remember, long time ago, the chief underwriting counsel at First American, Cliff Morgan, had something that he talked about years ago called competitive underwriting. And he used to blow people's minds by saying that claims are good. We need claims. We need claims to basically validate our existence and the reason for title insurance. If we don't pay claims, what's the point of having it? But the big message I gave to the underwriting staff is, because I've done it, I have their back when it comes to them making a more creative decision or a more risky decision in their underwriting, because I have their back. I understand that. I told them that I want them to be powered to keep the customers happy, get deals done, and I would have their back if something went in the wrong direction, so to speak. The other thing that I have here is the first staff meeting example. I said this to each and every employee when I came into the building at our very first town hall meeting. I told each and every employee that it would not second guess a decision that they made in favor of helping out a customer or solving a customer's problem. I wanted to give them, tell them that they had the ability to make the customer happy. Again, simple stuff, but it needs to be said sometimes, and people need to hear it in order to move the culture in that right direction. So after we've done, our engagement, our excitement, and our empowerment, and we start hitting some goals, meeting some goals, hitting some milestones, if you will, you need to celebrate. Show the employees the wins and the results. We share market share figures. We have a list of all of our new agents that we've signed on over the last couple of years, and we share that. We share our profitability. We share a lot of data with the employees, and I think that's important because everybody works very hard, but they want to see the wins and the results, and we need to celebrate when we do that. The other thing, and I can't emphasize this a lot, and I think I got this from my grandfather, is I thank folks a lot, and I think we need to do that each and every day. I think people sometimes appreciate that more so, if we can believe it, than money sometimes. It's just basically showing gratitude and appreciation for everybody and what they do. But there also is, this has also been something that I've embraced throughout my career, is praising publicly and criticizing privately. I'm not the kind of person that would ever criticize someone publicly in front of other people and belittle them and make them feel bad, but I will praise publicly often. And I've been able to build up a following, if you will, or people that have trusted me throughout my career and wanting to come work for me because of this just very thing, is that this is a characteristic that I've embraced over the years, and it's a very important one. Also, reward, small bonuses, big ones, 401k discretionary contribution, giving the 3rd of July off. I think this year we had July 2nd and 4th, or July 3rd was in between the week. We gave them July 3rd off, so give them the 4-day weekend when they work really hard. Close up early, and this is kind of funny. I showed you the tomatoes and the bagels. Feed them. Sometimes they're like gremlins after midnight, but if we have a full staff, we have a happy staff. And again, showing appreciation from the top all the time. Without daily contributions from employees, I cannot accomplish anything ever. So appreciation needs to be demonstrated all the time. As I mentioned, but it's worth repeating, again, walk the walk, talk the talk, lead. Act the part every single day. And that's attitude, enthusiasm, energy, smiling, engaging, thanking, teaching, coaching, consoling sometimes. But basically, all of this amounts to influence. How do we as leaders and managers each and every day influence people that we work with? It's doing all of these different things, and it's doing it each and every day. It's spaced repetition, it's habit. Leaders can influence in both a positive or negative way each and every day. It's a choice. It's a choice that you make every day when you get up, how you're going to lead and how you're going to be. And that behavior rubs off on other people and everybody else. Demonstrate the ability to get results, walking the walk, talking the talk. So you can have a really good plan. Hey guys, we're going to go out and we're going to beat so-and-so. But if you don't ever get the win, you lose credibility. So you've got to basically drive results. Really helps, because that does build credibility, and then it makes it easier as you move on down the road to change the culture to one of focusing on meeting goals and focusing on stakeholders. Also, handle the tough stuff, the heavy lifting. That means as a leader, oftentimes we can't shirk, difficult decisions or responsibilities. We've got to roll up our sleeves and sometimes work really hard. Sometimes I find myself coming in on weekends or maybe doing work late at night, but it takes what it takes to get things done sometimes, and we just can't, work a regular shift or regular hours. It's working hard and making the tough decisions, but also making tough decisions quickly and acting, and not just dwelling on them for a long period of time. So I just threw down some phrases, some things that I've carried along the way, and my employees have heard this ad nauseum, and not even here, but probably at my prior companies as well. But these are things that I come back to all the time. Get to yes. That's just basically keeping the customer happy. Get to yes. Figure out a way to get it done. Keep the customer happy. This is the other just get it done. So this is the secret word there. But, you know, let's just get it done. Let's not wait till tomorrow. Let's not debate it. Let's not wait 3 weeks to figure it out. If there's something that can be done now, let's start it. You know, if the driveway's filled with snow, let's not wait 6 hours. Let's just go out there and get it done right now. Say this a lot, make money, have fun. We're in the title industry. Let's do that. Life is too short not to have fun each and every day. And again, it starts at the top with leadership. Crawl, walk, run. My methodology often, if we're moving into a new marketplace or we're doing something a little bit different that we haven't done before, I always use this mantra. Also, from a technology standpoint, I love Amazon. I'm an Amazon Prime member. I love click. It's at my house in 2 days. It's fantastic. If we can create the Amazon experience for our end users, our customers, as we move forward in our future, we will hit a home run. Fail often, fail fast, and learn from it. Again, that goes back to not dwelling on decisions. That's making decisions, taking all the business facts that you have, making a decision, seeing if it worked. If it didn't, you move on, you fail, but you'll learn from it. Define the moment or let the moment define you. That's basically taking action and doing something and not waiting for things to come to you. And this last one I use way too much, but if there's something really complicated being stated to me, and it can be anything, I'll just often stare at the person and just say, it was my understanding there would be no math. So that's my last good one, my last good saying. So I just wanted to share with folks here, again, I was going to say I was comparing my company or using my company as an example or the lab for some of the stuff that I've worked on over the last 2 years. But we did a survey this past year, and I wanted to see what our results have been over the last couple of years at Caddick as I've been here for the last 2 years. So we did an employee survey middle of last year. There were 94 employees that completed the survey. That was about 2/3 or so of our employee count. There were 7 sections with a total of 70 questions. It was completed by long and short-term employees. And it was from a survey produced by a periodical in Connecticut and based on the best places to work in Connecticut. So we more or less adopted a lot of the questions from that survey because we wanted to take a pulse on the employees to see, you know, where we were. And this just wasn't Connecticut; it was all over the organization, so it was all over the region. But we used that survey, and you can see here we got a good smattering of new employees and old employees. So on the left, we had employees that were here less than a year answering, but also employees 10 years or more. Also, the vast majority of the people that have worked for the company were longer tenured employees. So it was a good sampling there. So there were 6 categories that they could answer for these questions: unsure, strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, and then I've put down here agree and strongly agree. But these were some of the questions that we asked, and it was a pretty amazing results. It surprised me, and I was very proud of it and proud of everyone's accomplishments here. I have confidence in the leadership of the organization, 90%, you know, saying that they agreed or strongly agreed. And if you read down through these, there's some interesting results here. But if we go down to the very bottom, I am proud to work for this organization. 97.6 of the respondents said that they agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. But the very bottom, which is extremely telling, and this is where it's the tantamount of employee engagement and a winning culture, is I am willing to give extra effort to help this organization succeed, the organization succeed. And so when we have that force behind us, we can basically create any goals, any vision, any mission that we want. And if we have everybody rowing together, we have a winning culture. We will go out and we will execute and we will get it done, especially when people have that in their hearts and in their minds. Some quotes from the survey. When we asked what are the greatest strengths of the organization, team spirit, it's the people and the drive. We all have to reach our goals. The staff and its willingness to work together to achieve corporate goals. Caddick cares about the employees and is a great company to work for. There is definitely a team approach in our office. Everyone is willing to roll up their sleeves and help get the job done. Your hard work is appreciated by our office managers as well as the executive management. Everyone's helpful. We work well together and have fun together. Make money, have fun. The communication between management and staff has been much better in the past few years, and I sense a true feeling of teamwork amongst all departments toward a common goal. That's so important. Again, it's communication, collaboration, setting a clear path, a clear plan, and a clear goal, and communicating that. And finally, it's leadership. So with that, before I end, I just wanted to actually just read one more quote with regard to culture and its ties to leadership. And I just got this given to me the other day. And it's a quote that says, "The only thing of real importance that leaders do is create and manage culture." And in a lot of ways, that's what we do each and every day. And it's any one of us who have employees that report to us, managers, leaders, or any type of stakeholder. So with that, I'm done with my presentation and webinar, and I'll turn it back over to Jeremy, I guess, to see if there's any questions out there or comments. And I appreciate everybody's time today.
Yeah, Jim, thank you. Good information on what you've done to change the corporate culture. And as I mentioned earlier, we are holding some time for questions. Submit them through the questions box, and we'll pitch them over to Jim and pick his brain a little bit. Just a reminder, if you did miss parts of today's webinar or think others in your office would benefit from listening, it is being recorded, and the recording will be available for replay. The link to the recording will be emailed to everyone tomorrow. And then, as a reminder, you can always access all of our archived webinars on Alta's website at alta.org/title topics. Now, Jim, one part in your presentation, and I kind of had a question here. I'll kind of start it off a little bit. You were mentioning you like to watch sports, and it made me think of a movie from, I think it was the early 2000s. It's called Remember the Titans. And it's a football movie about a team in Texas, and two of the main players are having a conversation. It wasn't Texas, I'm sorry. I think it's, Alabama or Texas, not sure, sorry. And two of the leaders on the team were discussing, the clashes on the team. And the one guy, Gary, he points out the other guy's poor attitude, and the other person's response was that attitude reflects leadership, Captain. And so, Jim, I wanted to ask you, how do you, embrace this positive attitude every day? How do you come to work every day with attitude that, that you want everyone else on your staff to embrace?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, and sometimes it's easier said than done. But part of it has just been my outlook for a long time. But it is something that you do have to work on. There's stuff that goes on the outside of our building and our walls, and there's personal things that can occur in our life. But as leaders, we're on a stage and we are looked at. Our words have so much meaning, and I've had to learn that over the last couple of years, that simple statements, simple words, simple conversations can have so much of an impact. To not be positive can basically, I know can bring people down. So in a lot of ways, it's just working at it. I went to, it could have actually been Daryl Turner, believe it or not. He said that it's easier to wake up each and every day and be negative than it is to get up each and every day and be positive. But we know we have to be positive each and every day, especially when we're in leadership positions. So it's work. It's hard work, but it's necessary if we're going to move the team in the right direction, if you will. So attitude is important. And sometimes, I've said it to my kids, listen, you got to change your attitude. Because you're not going to be successful in life if you have an attitude like that. So it is a great question, and you have to work at it sometimes.
Yeah, it is constant work. Anyone on the call, I think with children, yeah, totally get that. The constant battle of just picking up trash. It's like kind of following a bread trail behind them. Oh, you tell them, put it in the trash can. Oh, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm like, are you really sorry? I've told you this 3 times today, and your behavior has not changed.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if you're willing to share this, Jim, or maybe you can share the questions. But I had a few people ask if you'd be willing to share your employee survey. So it sounds like
Sure.
There's some interest out there of others maybe doing this in their companies as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'll send it to you.
Yeah. So Jim's email is on the last slide. So anyone who is interested, maybe if you want to reach out to him and he can share that with you.
You bet. I'd be more than happy to.
All right. Here's an interesting question. The question is, how can an employee get a program like this moving if leadership does not see that there is teamwork, that there's a problem with teamwork already, or that there is not transparency with goals or rewards. So, if the employees are seeing a need, but yet leadership maybe isn't seeing it, how can an employee go on about maybe engaging a company to do this process?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that can oftentimes be a very difficult situation. I've been in that situation throughout my career where, you're sort of a quote unquote cog in the machine, and you're a lower level person that's working at a company, or a mid-level manager, and that can be very frustrating. I've always often learned to still remain positive, give feedback as much as possible, but if you have a direct report individual, or I'm sorry, boss that you're reporting to, who is one of these, head down, kicking the dirt, and just not getting it done from leading the company, leading the culture in the right direction, and being a leader, look above that person if you have to. Sometimes it can be risky, but if it's really bad and you love your company, you love your job, you love what you do, and if it gets to the point where you're like, I can't do this anymore and I'm thinking of leaving, go to your boss's boss sometimes and do that jump over and express those feelings. Go to your boss first and be open and honest. It's communication, it's transparency, and letting folks know your feelings. And I have conversations like this now. If someone comes into my office, it just happened yesterday, it happened last week, somebody was upset with somebody about something that they did or said. I said, go talk to them. Make sure that they understand, why it upset you, why it bothered you, the setting, whatever. Clear the air and let's do it now. Don't let it wait. Don't let it fester. Then the other option is, try to do that and just continue to be positive and try to effectuate change by communicating. But if you can't, then sometimes you just have to look for a different organization. That's ultimately, where you get stuck sometimes, is that if you're not happy in what you do, each and every day, life is short. Maybe you got to look to do something else, or do something elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and change can be a double-edged sword. Sometimes you may have a camp of people that don't want the change. They kind of like how how the company operates and are comfortable. So there's a question, and I don't know if you have any stats. And he's wondering, what has turnover been like? Did you see some people leave, and is it increase or decrease? I'm guessing, maybe with this culture change, it's probably held steady.
Yeah, no, and actually that's been, I think, one of the most important, more proud things that I've had since I've been here, is that we've actually done a lot of hiring. And when I came into Cadix, 70% of our employees were baby boomers, and that age group and older, if you will. So there were a lot of people here that had 35 years experience, 30 years experience, 40 years experience. But again, it went back to me engaging folks, learning about what they did. I mean, I met with departmental managers and sat with them the first few weeks as much as I possibly could, and learned how we did things in the policy processing department, how we did AR, how we did a lot of different things. And, it wasn't just mandates when we were making changes. It was like, I noticed that we're doing this particular item this way. There's really, perhaps no need to be doing it this way, or you can eliminate this step, or these 5 steps, if you will. And I took a lot of my experience working at 2 great companies over 20 years and employed a lot of the best practices of what I learned throughout the years, and basically brought a lot of that here and implemented the best practices. But it was communicating, it was working with folks on that level, but showing them the how and the why we're doing this, why we're making this change, why it makes sense. It still can be difficult because, again, if you've been doing something the same way since 1983, it's hard for a new guy to come in and say, you know what, we're not going to do it that way anymore. But if you communicate and explain the why and the how, you can get buy-in and people understanding that. Also, when you start showing results, you're having fun again, making money, growing, and if you get that energy around you, people want to stay. People don't want to leave a company where people are having fun and they're working hard and they're all working together and everybody has a lot of teamwork. That's been what I've found. Granted, there's going to be some folks that just will never get on board. And that's part of some of those early wins, or identifying people who are change agents or informal leaders, and those are not. And some of those folks, sometimes they either self-select not to be here, or we have to make those choices for them. But overall, we've had a very good experience in terms of employee retention with all the changes we've done over the last few years.
All right, that's fantastic, Jim. And it's funny, at the beginning of the webinar, you mentioned that this topic is pretty important, maybe not as controversial as something, say, online notaries. Definitely not how to implement TRID or, RESP enforcement, but the questions are coming in like gangbusters.
Oh, good. Okay. That's great. I thought it would be more, e-closings and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But,
and artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And all
AI.
that. Yeah. No, lots of good stuff and there's a lot of kind of a common theme of maybe, middle managers, and how do you get that top-down buy-in culture. So I don't, maybe if you could touch on a little bit more about that. We probably have 5 or 6 questions of people are asking, how can you make that happen?
So just again, Jeremy, rephrase it. What was the question? How do we effectuate? What was it?
Top-down culture. So say you're a middle manager, how and the leadership just doesn't see it, doesn't buy in, doesn't think you need to change culture. Maybe are there 2 or 3 tips you have for the middle manager who could go about maybe trying to effectuate some change?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if I was to describe again my culture, I would never call our culture, top down. First of all, I would basically say it's bottom up. And again, that goes into, meeting with the field staff out in the branches, and meeting with just the staff generally around the company, and asking them how they're doing, how things are going. One of the most important tools that I've used, and this is maybe where we can go with this, is when I came here, I had mid-level managers meetings. I call them skip level meetings. So it wasn't my senior team, it wasn't my CFO, COO, and the C-suite level folks meeting with me. Every other month, I'll meet with our mid-level managers. So it's basically the reports up to my direct reports, and I'll go down and I'll skip a level and bring in lunch, and I'll have all the managers sit around our conference room. We bring in lunch and we talk about what's going on in their departments, what are their hurdles, what are their issues, what are their wins, what are their success stories. But the best thing about that is the interchange of ideas and people recognizing that they can help one another cross departments. Like we might have someone in one department, say it could be in technology, hearing a problem or an issue in the policy processing department, or it could be anywhere in the claims department. And they say, actually, you know what? Have you looked at this solution or this piece of software? Or it could be anything like that. So just getting people together, sometimes in that environment, and communicating and sharing ideas, I think is always, one of the more important things. And I enjoy hearing from those folks unfiltered about what they see and what they've got for their hurdles. And rather than having that filter of having my direct report, oh, everything's great, so is it really? Okay. But, I think that's important. And I may not have answered the question perfectly.
Well, it's kind of interesting, because I think at least kind of a next question, but how you've brought people together and collaborate and talk and work together maybe to solve problems. Questions raised by a few people. How do you, kind of go to this and maybe can help solve some of this problem, is how do you deal with employees that, that one maybe have kind of a daily bad attitude, or, how do you go about stopping gossip? So they're not talking, bad about employees, but they're talking about positive solutions.
Well, I guess there's a couple of different approaches. I mean, it depends on the level of bad attitude. It depends on the duration of that bad attitude, and it depends on a lot of different things. When I came to the company early on, there were individuals that had been here for a long time that had either bad attitudes or different issues, and some of those I tackled head on, and some of those folks are gone, because if we're trying to change the culture and we're trying to do a lot of things and everyone's working really hard, you don't need someone to poison the well, if you will. And we oftentimes will meet with those individuals. We'll tell them exactly what they're doing. I always try to use examples, concrete examples of their behavior and how their behavior is affecting other people, whether it's observational or talking with their manager or some of their coworkers, but basically talking with them, as much as possible. I've learned that some people can change, and you can work with them and coach them and mentor them, but oftentimes I found that they really can't. So I've given it time throughout my career with these individuals, but eventually, it's usually cut bait. I have another stupid little saying in my office, and it's up, near my credenza. It says, surround yourself with people who want you to succeed. And I think that's very important. Top-down, organization-wise, is that you want people that are positive and want you to succeed, and either train them up, get them to sort of buy in, explain to them why what you're doing and how it's going to help them. And it goes back to the rewards, the wins, the tomatoes, the raises, the bonuses, the thank yous, all of that, showing that to them that's there. If you give them all of that, demonstrate that, show that to them, and yet they are still negative and just nasty or whatever, it's, again, I would part ways with somebody like that. So that's my take.
All right, thanks, Jim. And if anyone's looking for maybe a little reading material, a good book on leadership and teamwork is Boys in the Boat. It was a good read. Alta staff read it last year and has used it to reinforce the teamwork attitude. And we actually have an oar that is in our office. So every time we come together for a staff meeting, we see that and it kind of symbolizes, what we're all working for, and it's for all of our Alta members out there. A couple more questions coming in, Jim, and then we'll let you get back to running CADIC there.
Yeah, no problem.
Quick question. Someone asked, what SWOT stands for. Jim, if you want to let us know what the acronym means.
Yes, absolutely. SWOT is a business analytical tool term, if you will. It's a company's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. One of the first things I did, actually, when I came into CADIC, excuse me, we had a board meeting 2 weeks after I had started, and I wanted to lay out sort of my take and my view on CADIC and present it to the board of directors. So I used the SWOT template basically to analyze CADIC, and I'd actually use it in some of my interviews, but I had competed against CADIC for 20 years throughout my career. So coming into the company, I had a little bit of an advantage because I had competed against the company for so long that I knew a lot of its strengths, its weaknesses, and its opportunities and its threats, being an outsider. So early on, when I came in, I was able to sort of use that template to crystallize my thinking on where I was going to go with the company, not necessarily initially, but over time where I wanted to move the company. I know what CADIC's strengths were coming in, and I still know what they are, and a lot of them haven't changed. We had some glaring weaknesses. I'll give an example. CADIC didn't really have a very robust external agency audit program, and I knew that was a glaring weakness for the company. It was exposure for the company, and it was also a strength because some of the folks used to use it as a marketing tool. Hey, come work with us. We don't audit you, or don't really properly audit you. So we identified those, and I presented those, and it was a great tool. If folks ever want to take a step back and analyze their business, if they're doing not so well, do a SWOT analysis. Figure out, who are your threats in your marketplace. It can be macroeconomic. It can be 3 feet of snow in January. That's a potential threat. Interest rates rising. There's a million different things that can be out there, but specifically to your industry, your competition. What are your threats? We have a very robust enterprise risk management program here, and we get together once every other month with a management working group to look at all of our enterprise risks. And a lot of that is our threats. Basically, it's like we have a list of like 40 to 50 threats that can threaten the company from a technology side. And we've heard enough about cybersecurity and all of that, information technology, but we list and categorize all these threats, these risks, and we have them, and we work to mitigate them. But we've also built some of these risks and the ERM process into our strategic plan. So a lot of our actions each and every day are meant to mitigate those risks, minimize them, and sometimes try to eliminate them. But going back to the original question, SWOT's a great tool. You can look it up on Google, and it's a great way to analyze a company or a business.
Right, right. Interesting. Definitely a SWOT analysis, good exercise to go through, probably yearly.
Yeah.
Jim, I don't know, maybe if you'd want to share, Zach was curious, your biggest personal challenge, when changing the corporate culture at CADIC, any personal anecdotes you could share?
Yeah, I think, coming into any organization as a new guy, even the new guy at the top, can be very challenging and difficult. And I think it's walking that fine line of being a change agent if need be. It's almost harder, I think, to come into a company that's hitting it out of the park. Who's taking over for Jeff Bezos at Amazon? It's almost harder like that than it is to come into a company that has a large amount of potential, a lot of strengths and a lot of opportunities. But it's basically making sure that you engage the people that have been here for a long time, that have great ideas, and that like I said before, had a lot of pent up energy that wanted to have CADIC succeed. And there's a lot of those people that were here that are here now, that have been at CADIC for a long time, that had that. But it's just sort of sifting through those people who want you to succeed and want to be part of the team and the movement forward, and then just sort of figuring out who are the ones that might pay you lip service a little bit but aren't really on the team. So that can be challenging and that can be difficult at times. But again, that goes back to communicating with people and engaging people and talking with them and talking with other people and figuring all that out. So again, sort of a squishy answer, but it's just basically what I sort of experienced and went through, and that can be difficult, but it can be worked through.
No, thanks for sharing. Question kind of about the survey that you did of the staff and maybe the timing. Did you do the survey kind of, or I guess the simple question is, when did you do the survey? Was it kind of after you implemented some of the culture changes to get reaction from employees, or was that something you did in the beginning?
It was after a keg party.
Oh, yes. No, all right.
No, we did it last summer. So it was like a year and a half into my tenure that we did it. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of new employees come in. And the reason why I did it when I did it is we hired a bunch of folks over the last couple of years, and not just external facing people, but a lot of internal people, a lot of support staff type people. And I wanted to make sure and get a read on how the new and the old were blending together, and kind of get a view of what the people that have been here for more than 10 years felt and what some of the new people felt. And so we did it a year and a half in. It was last June or so. So that kind of gives you an idea that we've had some success there, because you had people, the vast majority of the people on that survey were here for more than 10 years, and the other big chunk were the people that were here less than a year. So we were able to blend a lot of the call it the more tenured and the new employees together. And that took a lot of hard work. And that was all my field staff and managers all working very hard to assimilate and bring in, and inside managers here in our home office, but working really hard to make sure that new folks were welcomed and they fit in. And no matter what, when you bring new people in, there's always some difficulties and things of that nature. But we didn't have one new employee, as far as I know, that we've hired that has a key employee that has left since I've been here, which is really great. And basically all of our key people as well that were here when I got here are more or less still here as well. So it's been a good measure in that regard. So it was done about a year and a half for me being in.
Okay. And are there plans to maybe measure again, do another survey down the road, to kind of see, kind of do a checkup, how you're doing?
Yeah, we actually, what I did with that survey, met with the senior staff, and there was actually some other parts regarding benefits that we were told we needed to work on. So we actually took the negative parts of the survey and we showed those to the staff as well. And we said, hey, listen, we've heard loud and clear that healthcare benefits are some of your bigger concerns. Mm-hmm. And this past year, we took that into consideration. And when we just changed over to our co-pays, we basically kept everything the same exact amount for every employee, kept coverage the same, and CADC basically went into their pocket a little bit more and took care of the increase. Our healthcare coverage went way up in 2018, as a lot of different companies has, but it was one of the more concerning things. So we took that survey, we shared it with the employees at one of those town hall meetings. So we showed the good results and we showed the bad results. But for me, it gave me an idea of the areas that we needed to work on as a senior staff. And as a company, and make CADC a better place. So now that we've done some of that tweaking in the area of healthcare and benefits and some other stuff, we'll do that survey again probably in the spring or in a few months and see where we are and where we've come over the last year.
Yeah, and that gets back to one of your slides where, and it might have been the Dilbert cartoon, where not only are you're listening, but then you're also taking action, and your employees are seeing that. So when they give you feedback, you respond.
Exactly. That's so important. It's listening and acting. Yeah.
I don't know offhand, how many offices CADC has. Have your main headquarters and probably maybe have some in various states. But the question is, how do you handle your branch managers and empower them to make sure they are, embracing the same culture that you have at your corporate headquarters?
Well, one of the competitive advantages we have is that we still are, relatively speaking, a smaller title insurance company, and there is a lot of interaction between myself and the branch managers. But I have a fantastic vice president of field operations who's someone new to me. I just met 2 years ago, but I identified him as a great leader, a change agent, someone who gets it. And I put a lot of trust in him, and he does a great job being a liaison between the headquarters and the home office and the field offices and the field office managers. And he takes a lot of that load off of my plate. But he's someone that was internal to the organization, and it was actually a position that CADC didn't even have when I got here. It's a position that I created for a couple of different reasons, and I filled that position with him, and he's doing a great job. So that's made my life easier. So that's really how I've gone about doing it. But I also keep in touch with everybody too. A lot of the folks that are in the branches or branch managers I've either known from the industry or have known before from the New England Land Title Association or the Connecticut Title Association. We all know our industry is pretty small when we boil it down. So everybody kind of knows everybody in our industry, and I've known a lot of the folks that work at CADC for a long time, even before I came to CADC. So that's also made it easier.
Yeah, so I guess kind of maybe the moral of the story is, while it might be easier to change culture, to a one office shop, you can accomplish the same thing when you have multiple offices. You just have as you said, you need to hire the right people who embrace the same fundamentals that you do, and then trust them with what they're doing.
Hire good people and let them do their thing.
Yeah. All right, Jim, if you don't mind sliding to the last slide so people could see your email.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. Hang on one sec, we're navigating.
There
we go.
All right. There's a few questions we didn't get to, but if you want to reach out to Jim, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you, or respond by email. Again, if you're interested in their staff survey they did, please reach out to him. He said he'd be more than happy to share that with you. Looking ahead, our next free webinar will be in March, and we will be discussing a similar topic, and we're going to be focusing on the development of Alta's Our Values program, and we'll be discussing kind of the three tenets of the program, which is we lead, we deliver, and we protect, and we'll be talking about what that is all about. And then in next month, in February, we will be holding our first compliance webinar of 2018, and we will be discussing tax reform and the effect it has on Alta member companies. So watch for registration information for both of those webinars. And with that will bring us to the conclusion of today's presentation. To wrap up, I need to thank Fidelity once again for sponsoring our webinars. And Jim, thank you again for sharing how your team went about creating a new corporate culture.
No, my pleasure, and thank you very much for the opportunity, Jeremy.
All right. Hope all listeners found the presentation useful. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.